She's still laughing.
That's so funny. Welcome to 5 Lemons Left. We're the real stuff, the lemons making lemonade. So pucker up, because we're going to be discussing our life's lessons and the nitty-gritty details of our spiritual journeys.
Hey y'all, I'm Amanda.
And I'm Drusilla.
I'm Melissa.
Hello, this is Morgan.
And I'm Penny. Welcome to our podcast today.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love starting with the laughter. I do. And we have today a very special guest. Jennifer Hadley, our spiritual teacher, is joining us. Yay!
Yay, Jennifer.
I'm so excited. Jennifer started the Power of Love Ministry, and that is what we are all participating in. And I think that's pretty much says it all. The power of love. When I heard that, I'm like, I'm in. I want some of that. I want a big dose of that. And I haven't regretted it, not one moment. My life has completely changed. I laugh a lot more, don't take life as serious, and I feel super comfortable being in Jennifer's presence, role modeling non-judgment and unconditional love. So thank you so much for agreeing to be with us. Today, we're talking about body stuff. Last week, we were talking about healing high school, all of the patterns that we learn about ourselves, the uncomfortableness, the shrinking to fit what other people think about us, how we grew up affected how we showed up, and also how that carried into adulthood. And we talked a little bit about the tools to heal that. So, Jennifer, I would really love for you to just kick it to you and hear your opinion on that and give us a little bit of guidance or share with us whatever's coming up.
Well, the first thing that comes to me, Amanda, is that many people feel that in so many ways with their body, that their body is against them, or their body is against their life that they would like to live, that the body is limited in so many ways. And the spiritual perspective is that all is well, all is good, and everything is working together for our good, and that there is no lack or limitation except in the mind of the ego and the mind of the person who feels separate from their source. So the body takes a lot of that on, in a sense. We project it onto the body, such a deep sense of lack and limitation. And it often begins when we're a child, thinking that our body isn't good enough to do whatever, to play the sports or to be the cute one, or people, when they're children, they have to get glasses or they have to get braces, or something is going on that they feel like their body is against them. And then that carries through into adulthood, and it just becomes this nagging sense of lack and limitation and victimhood. This is happening to me. I can't seem to change my body or make it be the way I want it to be, no matter how hard I try. People work so hard to get in shape or to lose weight, only to have it all reversed, and then they gain even more weight than they ever lost, or they're all that hard work they did to get in shape, now it's gone. You know, I'm thinking of someone I know who's going to a major class reunion they're in their 70s, and 10 years ago when it was their class reunion, they worked so hard to lose a substantial amount of weight and get into shape so they would look good at that class reunion. And now they're like, oh, I got to go through all that again. I don't really want to. So the body can become such a source of thinking that we're a failure, thinking that we're not succeeding. And when that's going on, we just don't understand what the body is for. And the body is to help us work at the level of the mind to heal the false beliefs that we project onto the body. So that's a very long answer to get us started here.
I love that answer because it speaks to the heart of it. So what came up for me when you were speaking was like, so for people that are just hearing this for the first time, what would be like step number one? If, in like, yes, I've done the yo-yo dieting, what is the first step to changing your mind about your body?
I think the first step in any kind of spiritual growth or healing is to become aware of what you're actually thinking, feeling, and believing. And most people go to even extreme lengths not to be aware of what they're thinking, feeling, and believing. But that is the first step. As you know, I say awareness is healing, awareness is curative. And so when we can be just aware of what we believe and what we feel and what we think, then we have a hope of changing it. So for instance, just like if you had something that was festering in your basement or in your garage or in your closet, in your drawer, and you knew something was festering there, something not healthy, not good. And by festering, it's increasing, it's getting magnified by the lack of attention. It's just expanding on its own. There's nothing to stop it. We can become frightened to look at it. We become frightened to feel it, to think about it, to become aware of it. And so then it thrives in the darkness,
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think of the masthead of the Washington Post that says democracy dies in darkness or something like that. So it's like the monster under the bed thrives in the darkness. And the same is true if we don't give attention to our thoughts, our feelings, and our beliefs, then they seem to fester and increase and grow. And like anything that has the appearance of being viral or ever increasing, it's unhindered, and it becomes even more scary and more scary and more scary. And then we can't deal with it. It's too much. We're a goner.
Yeah, it reminds me when my children were younger and they would be afraid of being in their room in the dark. And I even went in and had fairy dust that I sprinkled all over the room so that they wouldn't be afraid. And we looked under the bed and we opened the closet door and we looked in. And so what I'm hearing you say is it's okay to look. And usually, of course, there was nothing there. Maybe it was the cat that was rustling in the closet or something, nothing that they needed to be concerned with. Yeah. So I totally understand what you're saying, Jennifer. It's okay to look. But I too, many times I feel afraid to really take a look at what's festering under the surface because I'm afraid that what I'm going to find is something, horribly hard to handle, so yeah.
And I think that a lot of us grow up like putting all of our unworthiness and our self-hatred onto our body. Like that's, if you're talking like the closet or the basement, like that's where we put all those things. Like we attach all those things to our body. I'm not good enough. Look at me. See, I'm a size whatever. See, I'm not good enough. So it's almost like your body is that closet that does hold all those things for you. So it is a great learning tool too, right? I mean, it's not just to be aware, but we can use our body to grow and learn and get better and love ourselves.
Yeah, I've really come to see that our number one tool with healing our thoughts about ourselves is our relationships, and the number two tool is our body.
Say that again.
The number one tool we have to shift our thinking and expose our false beliefs is our relationships. We get so triggered in our relationships, and we go down rows that are just insane at times. And we do the same thing with our body. I remember when I was in my 20s, I used to need 9 hours of sleep a night. And I thought, I am just wasting my life sleeping all this time. And now I can see that I needed that long night of sleep to help me with, in dream time, working with my thoughts and my feelings. But I thought it was a waste of time, wasting my life away. I need to get up and at it. So I would periodically force myself to get up earlier, and then not getting enough sleep after a few days of that, a week of that, I would get sick. Mm-hmm. Of course, I would consume a lot more coffee, and then I would get sick. So I tried that a few times, and then I realized, okay, this is not working. I can't succeed in getting less sleep this way. I've got to find some other way. And I didn't find a way. But then years later, I started to really meditate and work with my consciousness to heal my mind of false beliefs. And now I only need 7 hours of sleep. And so for the last 25 years, I've been very good with just 7 hours of sleep on average. And that just naturally occurred. And I know it's because I just don't need all that time in dream time, because I'm meditating and doing other things that are cleansing to the mind.
Yeah, that's interesting about meditation. And how does like stopping the mind loops, stopping those false beliefs, like affect our overall being, our bodies, our minds?
Well, if you think of, like, if someone has a child or a grandchild that they love in their life, someone that they really care for, and let's say that child or that teenager gets into a mental loop of negativity, mm-hmm. because that's what happens is we start thinking things like, oh my gosh, I'm an idiot. And so therefore, I won't have any friends, and then I won't have any love in my life. I won't fall in love. I won't have a partner. Something's wrong with me. I'm not a good person, maybe. I'm not lovable. And then we start thinking, so I'll never have a great career, and on and on. We just keep building on that till we find ourselves, now we're going to die homeless in our car or something like that. I mean, these are real scenarios that real people have. They're extremely prevalent in our world. I've talked with many people who fear dying alone in their car, a bag person who has nothing because they're a loser who's ruined their life. And they never had a real shot at it anyway. I mean, it's just a very common thing. Even if their life doesn't look anything like that, it's still a fear. It's still something that's happening in there. So let's say you had a child who had these kinds of beliefs, and they were speaking out loud their worries, their concerns, their fears, their self-judgment and self-hatred. You, as someone who cares about that child, would you say to that child, I know it's true, you're right, it's horrible, you're really stuck, like your life has no light in it, there's nothing you can do, you just got to slog on or kill yourself. I just don't see any options for you. And I don't see how it could ever get better. Anybody you think that likes you, it's just a joke. They don't really mean it. You're not really reading the signs correctly. Who would say that to a child? Nobody would say that to a child.
Nobody would say that. No.
Yeah. Nobody would say that to a child. But we say these things to ourselves.
Yeah. Never thought about it like that.
Yeah, that judge that is judging. Yeah. I love, Jennifer, one of the things that I loved from the work that I've done with you is when you shared with that when you started to really recognize that critical voice inside your head, and you would start like for me, sometimes when I see somebody that I judge is not quite at the right physical body size, you would say that when you started hearing yourself judge, you'd go judge. I still to this day, sometimes when I catch myself, which is sometimes, and I do start singing that to myself because, that judge can really take over and wipe me out if I allow it. So I'm interrupting those patterns.
Yes. Yes, I just heard in the news recently, one politician who many people would say definitely a person who is carrying a serious amount of extra weight, saying that another politician who is not carrying so much extra weight is a fatty. Like who's going to vote for them? They're fat. And I'm thinking, wow, this is such an interesting display of how we think. Like, okay, yeah, I might be overweight, but that person is definitely overweight, and that person is not good because they're overweight, and they don't even realize that deep down what they're expressing is their own self-hatred and projecting it onto the other person. And we all do that to some degree. I mean, I used to do it all day long, finding fault with people, especially the way they look. It's so easy to do.
So what came first, Jennifer? You stopped judging yourself or you stopped judging others about whatever, their body or...
Yeah, I don't know that it would be the same for everybody, but for me, I focused on having compassion for other people. And in accomplishing that, I started to be able to have real compassion for myself.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, maybe some people would go the other way, but I tend to think not. I think that it's easier to have compassion for another person, and practicing that, having respect, compassion, kindness for other people, it has more tangible rewards, I think, in the world. And so when we do that, we see that our life will really shift. And then we have more capacity to share the love and the kindness and the compassion with ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah. Something else we brought up last week as well was healing the one mind, healing ourselves and allowing it to manifest to those around us. Just a little bit of like Course of Miracles principles, and we didn't dive in it too deeply. We saved some juicy stuff for you. Yeah, so how does that play out in the whole body situation and healing ourselves, healing the world? And I believe we touched a little bit also on Drusilla, what was it? I can't think of it now.
Well, I do have a scenario that I would like to discuss with Jennifer. Yeah. I've heard you say, Jennifer, so many times when people get really intensely involved in the spiritual work that they start to see things happen, physical manifestations. And most of you all know about at the beginning of this year, I started with an activation session and was very surprised that I am not a body came up very heavily for me. And within a couple of days, my brother ended up getting diagnosed with cancer. And within 20 days, he had passed away. And within that 20 days, my older sister also got diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. And during the same period of time, I contacted strep throat and was out. And I immediately started thinking, what's going on, what's happening. And I sat with one of the counselors in our ministry, and what came up was that I see death and physical ailment as a punishment. And have been working with that. But I don't know that I still really have a strong understanding of how to work my way through that and what it should feel like or look like, for me. Are you able to share something on that?
Sure. So when you say work your way through that, can you say more about that?
I am very in tune with the thought that I am not a body and what that means, that I am spirit and seeing. Let me back up a little bit and explain a little bit more about what came up during my counseling session. So when speaking about my brother and his passing and describing how everything happened, I mentioned what my brother said to me right before he passed, which was he had wished that he could have been a better husband to his wives. He had been married 3 times. And so in that, somehow I must have conveyed to the counselor that I drew the conclusion of his death being related to him being a bad person. And so in my mind, I have not totally been able to reconcile what that actually really means from a spiritual standpoint.
So most people leave this world through the experience of the death of the body. So does that mean everyone is being punished as the final experience in this world?
I think that's how I probably believe it to be. And since I've been in this ministry and since I've studied the course, I don't think that. So I'm guessing that that's what's coming up for healing, is transitioning my way out of that way of thinking.
Yeah, I think a lot of people feel that any kind of illness is some kind of punishment, that you've done something wrong, or maybe you've been poisoned by something in the world, that, some toxicity in the world that has poisoned you. So you're a victim of the world. And would that happen to you if you were really a good person? Or is that that victimization, that punishment? I think that's a very common belief. And I don't think it really has anything to do with the body. I just think it has to do with, this is a manifestation of the thought system of separation, that we're separate from our creator. We're separate from spirit, separate from God. So in that separation, then we're born to die. We will be punished for wanting to have a life apart from God, or punished for not being good enough, not being loving enough, not being true to God enough. And so the punishments will often come as the body having issues and being in a breakdown. And one of the strongest ego thoughts we have is just that we're a victim of this world, over and over again, every day, many times a day. And so when people feel that something is going on with their body, they feel the victim of the world is, that's what's operating. I am a victim of this world, and I'm a victim of my body. And there's not a whole lot I can do about it, or desperately trying to find the solution in the world for the healing. But A Course in Miracles is really clear that all body issues are a manifestation of what it talks about as the unconscious guilt. Mm-hmm. Unconscious guilt. And the guilt comes from being unloving and from choosing to believe that we are separate from God, or choosing to reject God and have a life apart from God. But all of these things that we would say would be the cause of the unconscious guilt, however it manifests, all of that is a fantasy. None of it is real.
Thank you.
It's just beliefs. So it is done unto you as you believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was the teaching of Jesus when he walked the earth. It is done unto you as you believe. So all that stuff that we experience in the body is manifested because of our beliefs. So we're not being punished. We're being shown, oh, this is something you could change your mind about. This is something you could do differently. And many people do, and they have healings in their life, in their body.
Yes. And how does that align with the, I think it's the second part of the obstacles to peace, the body, the purpose of the body, or the meaning of the body. Is that the same? That the meaning that I hold about my body is the same way that I will experience the body. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And it can feel like it's unconscious.
Yeah.
But I think it's important to recognize that there really is no such thing as unconscious. And we can just own that these are our thoughts and these are our beliefs. And the good news is we can change our mind. And when we do change our mind, we can have a different experience. Yeah. The body may or may not heal, but we can still have a different experience.
That happened to me just recently in a class that I had with you last week, Jennifer. We were talking about being grateful for our bodies, being grateful for our body elementals. And a week before that, I think I was just fighting with myself. I was just really not having a pleasant time at all with being in my body. Life was pretty good, but I was fighting with myself. And that practice of gratitude, like I changed just that one little thing, that pause of like, yeah, the reminder to be grateful. It really just, it flipped a little switch. So like I've been going to bed without watching drama TV, right? I've been reading a little spiritual stuff. And, so just all the things that, not all of them, but, some of the things that I was shaming myself and like telling myself how bad I was, like just stopped a little bit. And that was, that is an example of change, just that little switch of switching from blame and shame to gratitude for the vehicle really just made a difference.
Exactly. We can always be grateful for our body, even if there's nothing we can find that we like about it. We can still be grateful for the body, because you can't have a human birth without a body.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah. So I think the principle, the Course in Miracles principle, I am not a body, which is very foundational to A Course in Miracles. I think even for people who don't get it intellectually, like it brings a sense of relief, because like all fear of death is around body identification, and like not being a body is the same as, like, I think the concept of we're all one and we're one with God, like, I think even for people who are not spiritual students, that sounds like an appealing idea to them, even if they don't really get what that means or what that looks like. And so saying I'm not a body is really another way of saying the same thing. However, all evidence appears to point to the contrary. So for someone who maybe is not a Course in Miracles student and is not coming to your classes every single week and doesn't have this spiritual community, like, how do you work with the principles such as I am not a body? I know, Amanda, you just gave a great example of turning to gratitude, but what are some other practical ways to work with this concept in our lives?
Well, I think it's been helpful for me to say, I have a body, but I am not a body, but I have a body. And it is my responsibility to take care of my body. So it's a different relationship to the body than thinking I am my body, to say I have a body, but I am not my body. And to honor the body as a vehicle. Some people really don't like this life, which I understand. I used to feel that way. And that illness can be a form of suicide, a way for people to get out of this life. I remember back in the 80s, I had mostly gay men friends when the AIDS epidemic started, and friends were dying all over the place. And that was so intense. And I remember one friend in particular that it seemed like he had a death wish. He decided that he was going to be promiscuous anyway. And it just seemed like, he's looking to find a way out, a quick way out, and that's going to be it for him. And so I do think that some people take their anger about themselves out on the body. So again, awareness is curative. Feel your feelings, recognize your thoughts, and not to argue with your thoughts, not to argue with your feelings, not to stuff them, but to look at your beliefs, because your thoughts and your feelings are expressions of your beliefs. If I believe I'm not good enough, then that is going to bring me a set of thoughts that are in alignment with I'm not good enough. And I can choose to think those thoughts are not. And people will say they have no choice. The thoughts come, there's nothing they can do. But then again, they're pretending to be a victim. They're not actually a victim. They can choose not to think them, like saying, judge, 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 judge. Singing that little song was my way of saying, I'm not going to think these thoughts. And there have been 1,000 times at least when I said, I will not think these thoughts. These thoughts are no part of me. They don't interest me. They're not helpful to me. I do not wish to think them anymore. I will not choose to think them. And sometimes I had to do that over and over and over again throughout the course of the day. But that continued willingness to say, no, I won't do that. It's like the same willingness that someone has to break an addiction, because many thought patterns do feel addictive. And so we know what our beliefs are by what we're choosing to think and how those thoughts are making us feel. So we can get into that place in our mind where we see that we are the ones who are choosing which thoughts to think. And, victimhood just keeps coming up again and again and again. We feel like a victim of our mind. We feel like a victim of our body. We feel like a victim of our relationships, of our workplace, of our environment. And that is 100% ego thought system. In the ego thought system, you will never escape victimhood. You will always be a victim. So that's how you know you're thinking thoughts that aren't true, because we are part of God. So how could we be a victim of God or of life? We can't be. So the willingness to say, no, I'm the dreamer of this dream. I'm the thinker of these thoughts. And I am the one who decides what I will accept and what I won't. But, we like to say, oh, but it's not my fault. It's not my fault. It's not my fault. I'm this way because I was raped as a child. I'm this way because my parents didn't love me. I'm this way because my parents got divorced. I'm this way because my spouse left me. I'm this way because. But that doesn't mean it's true. It just means we're abdicating responsibility. And ultimately, in this lifetime or another, we'll get tired of abdicating responsibility.
Yeah, the concept of radical responsibility. It feels like a lot, and it's so freeing at the same time. Yeah, absolutely.
Until you practice it, you can't even imagine that it could be liberating. Exactly. It's not possible. I can tell you, until I really practiced it, I had no concept that it could be liberating. I was such a blamer. But as soon as I started to take responsibility, I felt lighter. Because it's taking your power back.
Yeah.
Like if I could create and make this entire, mess, just think if I approached it from a different way, what could I make then?
Yeah. You could make it the power of love is what you could make. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, one with God is a majority. So if we realize that we just align with our divinity and then we have our power back. So if we take responsibility for life as we perceive it and everything that we think is a mess and just say, okay, I brought this mess into my experience and now as they used to say on Monty Python, and now for something completely different. And I'm ready to have something completely different. And Spirit, show me what that is. I'd like it to feel happy. I'd like it to feel yummy. I'd like it to feel successful. I'd like it to feel fun. I'd like it to feel creative. I'd like it to feel connected. How would you like to feel? And then let Spirit provide.
Yeah. I'd like to laugh a lot.
Yeah.
I would like to laugh a lot. Hey, Melissa, what would you like?
I'm not sure, but I do have like an aha from this talk. I really realize now how the body is almost like this suitcase that we've packed full of all of our judgments and all of our everything we've thought about ourselves and other people, and then it like manifests in the world. It develops from all these things we've been stuffing inside of it. And we can change that by starting to open that up and pulling out all those thoughts. And like, I was just thinking, Drusilla, to think that dying is a punishment or sickness is a punishment, that's something that we've put in that suitcase again. Like we've stuffed in there and we've said, okay, now this is going to be responsible to hold these feelings. And then I'm bad and wrong and I'm getting punished for something and it's going to be stuffed in my body and then it's going to manifest. And that we can open that up and start pulling that apart and not live that. So those are that's my aha. That's my fairy dust from this call. Yeah, I love it.
That's some good fairy dust. Yeah. Penny, thank you for bringing up fairy dust. I love all things sparkly.
Yeah. Well, and we talked some about people neglecting or abusing the body, but I think the other side of that same coin is worshiping the body. And there's, of course, a lot of that too. And it's also, I feel like, pretty common to start on one end of the spectrum and then move to the other end of the spectrum. And like, how do you find that middle ground of what is a holy relationship with the body?
Yeah, one of the things that we experience in this world is people being jealous of other people's bodies.
Mm.
It's like, oh, they got a Mercedes, they got a Bentley, they got a Barbie doll figure, they got this, and I have this. And there's that sense of my life would be so different if my body were different.
Mm-hmm.
And
I resonate with that. Yeah.
I don't think anybody couldn't resonate with that. I think men or women, everybody resonates with that. And, yet what I can say is that I've seen in my life, I'm 63 years old, and I've been a counselor for a few decades, 24 years or whatever. And I have seen people that are just breathtakingly beautiful, Hollywood's beauty. And yet they know that they can sometimes use that to get them, men and women, what they would like. And it succeeds for them. But then as they get older or something happens and their appearance of beauty and perfection seems to shift and change and fade, then they go through a crisis because they don't feel valuable anymore because they felt they were valuable for the way their body looked. And people who have these incredible, beautiful bodies, if they weren't raised by parents who are constantly recognizing their gifts and their talents and their intelligence and their loving heart and all of those things, if they were raised in a way that they were valued for the way their body looked, then they are often deeply insecure and don't have a sense of really being loved in this world for who they are because they've always felt loved for how they look. And people think, oh, I'd really like to have what they're having in terms of the body. But the truth is it comes with its own really difficult path a lot of the time. It depends on how people are raised. So I don't know if that answers your question, Morgan. Maybe you want to follow up or...
I don't know. I think it might be another way of asking the question that I asked before. Like, yeah, how do you engage in loving relationship with the body without idolizing it, without abusing it? Like, what does a loving relationship to the body look like? And maybe it's redundant because I feel like that's what we've been talking about this whole time.
It's kind thoughts, really kind thoughts. Everything will come from kind thoughts, releasing the judgments and simply being focused on kindness. And so, it's such a different way of living because as an adult, especially as we get older, we can do things like, okay, for lunch today, I'm going to have that leftover thing from the other day because if I don't eat it today, it's going to go bad. So I better eat it today. Instead of thinking, okay, body, what feels like it would be the most nourishing thing?
Mm-hmm.
Right? We go from this place of mentally trying to force things on the body, mentally trying to force the body to get in shape, to lose weight, to have toned abs, or to wear shoes that are like I love that song by Jessie J about we're in it for the love, not the money. I forget the price tag is the name of it. And it talks about women wearing shoes that they can't even walk in the shoes. How can you have any fun if you can't walk in your shoes? And so, but we force the body to do these things and it's not very kind. So just starting with kindness and gratitude, love, kindness, gratitude goes a long way with people, with bodies, with everybody.
Yeah, I think that's it. I think, and I think it's another way of saying what Amanda said earlier about practicing gratitude to the body. And it's like putting just a little space between yourself and the body, not to energize separation, but just to disengage from that identification with the body. And like I love at the end of a yoga practice when you bow in gratitude, and I always practice gratitude for my body, and it's that little bit of separation from identification with the body that I think is helpful for me. And I don't know if I'm saying it the right way.
You're saying it perfectly, Morgan.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And that sounds like a great opportunity to bring this to a close. Love, gratitude, kindness for ourselves, for each other. Wow, what a great place to live. And Jennifer, thank you so much for teaching us that and living that example. Yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah,
Thanks for joining us.
And before we go, Jennifer, please tell us about any events or classes or anything that you want to share that you have coming up.
Oh, thank you. Well, as you all know, we've got this program that starts later in May, Change Your Mind About Your Body, practicing the principles of A Course in Miracles with about a dozen Course in Miracles teachers, including myself and a lot of your favorite Course in Miracles teachers. So we're over a 5-month journey. We're going to work on changing our mind about our body so that we can have a better experience in our body and have a better experience with our mind. So that's coming up. And then, of course, if anybody's interested in learning about A Course in Miracles, I have my Course in Miracles podcast. So you can find that wherever you find podcasts.
Is that called Living A Course in Miracles, the podcast?
No, it's just called A Course in Miracles.
A Course in Miracles.
Yes.
Thank you. My favorite part of that is bonjour. You opened your class with your podcast with that every time. And I'm like a fool in the car going, bonjour, right back to you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Morgan, would you like to wrap it up for us?
Sure. Thank you. Thank you, everybody, for being here. Thank you for listening. And we will be sure to share the details of Jennifer's podcast and upcoming classes on our website and our social media. And so why don't you check out our website and our social media? It's 5lemonslaughing.com. 5 is spelled out, and we're on Instagram and Facebook and wherever you listen to podcasts. And if we're not on your podcast platform, let us know and we'll see if we can figure it out. And thanks for listening.
Hey, I just have one last thing. So here's the Post-its that I made from
Penny's
today.
Post-it for today.
Yeah, I'm willing to change my mind and now for something completely different.
Yeah.
Those are the 2 Post-its. Yeah.
Penny's Post-its. We love it.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Bye, y'all. Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.